I'd like to call this morning's meeting of the Municipal Financial Recovery Advisory Committee to order and welcome members of the committee as well as members of the audience who are here. First order of business, the minutes of the May the 16th meeting that were distributed yesterday afternoon, and I would just ask if anyone has any corrections or edits to those minutes. Okay, hearing none, the minutes stand approved as presented, and we will post them to the receiver's website subsequent to the meeting. I would highlight the fact that we have been maintaining all of the minutes of the meeting on the website for those individuals that are interested in reviewing the activities of the committee. Next item on the agenda is to provide an update in terms of the Office of the Receiver and the receivership position. Secretary Alan Walker did file a petition with Commonwealth Court on May the 11th, nominating William Lynch to be the next receiver for the city. I had reported on that at last week's meeting. A hearing has been scheduled for this Thursday, tomorrow, May the 24th, on General Lynch's nomination, and we have General Lynch with us this morning, and I would welcome him to the meeting, and we look forward certainly to the court's rapid action on his confirmation and moving forward and engaging General Lynch in the process. So good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Also, the next item is a status on the confirmed recovery plan. I'd like to touch on some updates that have occurred since last week. We did provide a comprehensive update last week consistent with the update that was presented to the court. On the asset monetization side over the last week, there has not been a lot of additional activity. There are some exchanges going back and forth with the proposals on the parking monetization, addressing some of the questions that have come up through the screening and evaluation team review process. But beyond that, in the last week, there really has not been any other significant actions beyond what was reported last week and filed with the court. On the operational side, there have been some further developments there I'd like to apprise the group of. The operational team, the NOVAC consulting team, along with the Pennsylvania Economy League, did meet last week with Mayor Thompson, along with the COO Ricardo Mendez-Salvia, and spent basically an afternoon reviewing the plan matrix. You have an updated copy of that plan matrix before you today. Subsequent to that meeting, there were other meetings held with various department heads as we're moving forward with implementing the many different recommendations. I think we've generally agreed on a prioritization of activities that need to take place, and you'll note on the matrix that the recommendations are prioritized into three different categories. Priority one being the most important items, those that need to be addressed as expeditiously as possible. Priority twos are actions that need to be completed basically within the next year. And priority three are those that have a longer-term horizon associated with it. The city has assembled their internal implementation teams under the business administrator's leadership, and those teams are also beginning to meet now as we move forward. They will be getting into the weeds on the different recommendations that fall under their particular purview. We have had discussions relative to the audit situation and the need to expeditiously complete the 09 audit as well as the 2010 and 2011 audits. and I think have a good game plan in place. We're looking to provide both some internal and some external assistance to the city to try to bring those audits up to date as quickly as possible. From an internal standpoint, we have approved the senior accountant position as requested by the city on an interim basis. A 120-day basis. The city has identified a candidate to come in and begin work as hopefully even within the next week, if at all possible, to assist. And we're looking at the engagement of some outside resources to further assist the city, especially as it relates to the 2010 and 2011 audit completions, trying to assemble the necessary information that will be needed by the city's independent auditor to be able to do that. The contract negotiation element is also moving forward, although the meetings that were scheduled last week at the request of the bargaining units were postponed, and following the confirmation of the receiver, it's the intent to engage the receiver along with the city and the receiver's labor council in those negotiations, and we would look to a rescheduling of those bargaining sessions hopefully within the next 2 weeks, the early part of June. I would highlight the fact that and as a follow-up to last week's meeting, that Council's action on several of the recommendations that are part of the confirmed plan is needed as expeditiously as possible. We're very concerned, especially with respect to some of the revenue-generating items, as well as some of the management capacity recommendations, that those items need to be acted on expeditiously. It is my intent as we move through the confirmation process for the receiver to continue to keep the court updated on actions or inactions that have occurred with respect to the confirmation plan. That is consistent with the directive that the governor signed, designated DCED to serve as the administrator for the Office of the Receiver and to keep the court apprised of activities with respect to the confirmed plan. From a cash flow standpoint, and I have provided you with an updated cash flow from what you had received last week. The updated cash flow reflects information that we've worked with the city's finance office on through the end of April. So it is reflective of actual financial activity through the end of April and then updated projections through year end. And it is reflecting a deficit for this year of about $6.8 million. The current cash balance is positive. As of the end of April, it was about $3.2 million. We anticipate that the cash balance will remain positive through the summer months. When we hit September, the major debt service payment that is due is factored into this cash flow. It is approximately $4 million, and that is what takes us into a negative situation. So we will need to make a decision later in the summer or early fall as to the payment of that debt service payment. The March debt service payment, as has been reported before, was not made by the city on those general obligation bonds, and that is what has allowed the city to maintain a positive balance at this point and through at least the end of the summer. Those are my updates in terms of the status of the confirmed plan. I would just ask if any members of the committee have any questions on the update.
More just curiosity than anything else. May is generally a good collection month for municipal governments. It's a collection of property taxes. Any sense of our property taxes being paid?
We're at our usual. We're at our 89% collection. We're doing well.
And I would agree with the mayor. From our review, the real estate collections are on target for this year. We're not seeing any major variances in terms of what we would project. The EIT has been a little bit slow, not unanticipated because of the transition that has occurred with the implementation of Act 32. We think that will work itself out, but as we went through that first quarter, the transfer of money between the office, there's a different pattern in place now as provided for in Act 32, and so that has had some impact on revenues in the short term.
That's understandable.
Any other questions on the status of the confirmed plan? I would also just mention that, and thanks to Dave Black in providing a color-coded recommendation with respect to the color coding of the priorities. We're working logistically through that process, want to apply that to the updated matrix, and then at least in terms of the web presence, we will put the color-coded version out there, which will identify those recommendations a little bit easier to view, and will identify those recommendations that have been completed and those that are in various stages, and try to provide a color coding that will make it a little bit easier for the public to review. So thank you for that, Dave. We'll look to post that on both the city's website, the receivers.
We do color code ours.
Yeah.
We've been color coding. I don't know how much you guys do, but
Okay.
yeah, we color code ours.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Any other comments? I would, not directly related to the confirmed plan, but I would also apprise the committee that we have been working diligently through the legislative process to try to address the results of the Supreme Court decision that occurred last October dealing with the city of Scranton. And we have, I think, reached an agreement in negotiating some language that will allow that legislation to move forward. We're optimistic. It is on the calendar in the Senate this week for some action, and we're hopeful that by the summer recess, we will have an amendment to Act 47 that addresses the Scranton Supreme Court decision. I think that's an important element for Harrisburg, as well as our other Act 47 communities in addressing labor cost containment issues. All right, I would open the floor for other comments from the committee. Mayor, Council President?
No, I haven't had any, sir.
Council President, I would just ask one question of you as a follow-up to last week's meeting. Has there been any movement on the part of Council with respect to the several legislative items that are before it at this point?
No, not at all. The committee meetings have been set up.
They have not?
Committee meetings have been set up.
They have been set up?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a schedule for those meetings?
I'm not on hand. We have
No,
to.
I sent Kurt an email asking him, particularly Brad Koblinski, who chairs Budget and Finance, if he had any intentions of holding any meetings before the end of the month, and Kurt said he hadn't gotten any information from Mr. Koblinski, but he would be checking with him, and I haven't gotten any response to date, right, Kurt? So Mr. Koblinski has not given us any dates on when he's going to be having these hearings on this important piece of legislation.
Okay.
I spoke with
Thank
him.
you.
I spoke with him last night. He's intending on setting up meetings. I understand that Ms. Wilson and also Ms. Reed set up some meetings, so he's trying to work around those.
Mm-hmm.
I did speak with him last night after the meeting.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to get an update so that we can appropriately inform the court. Okay. I would now open the floor for public comment. Mr. Midland.
Yes, sir. Mr. Midland.
Yes.
I have two questions, if I may. The first, the court's order indicates the understanding that before assets can be monetized, a plan needs to be modified. And that would mean taking another plan in modified form showing how the whole thing holds together, would have to go before the court. Do you have a date when you intend to take it there, given that your last comments, as I understand them, were that the intention is to stay on the June deadline?
I do not have a date at this point in time, but you are correct that the plan will be going back to the court once we are at a point where we're ready to finalize the asset monetization issues.
Well, as a sort of a follow-up, do you have some sense of a timeline on that? In other words, you expect it to be done in the next couple of weeks, within a month?
We're looking at roughly probably a little over a month, but we're still targeting for that end of June time period to have recommendations in place for the asset monetizations.
Okay. And my second question is, beyond, there have been conversations in public regarding whether the plan is complete basically as it is. And my understanding from what I've heard is basically the only thing that would be modified would be the asset monetization aspect. Is that all that's going to be changed, or do you have intentions of altering some other aspects of the plan?
I think at this point, there may be some other areas of the plan that might need to be modified to some degree. I think one of the issues we want to take a close look at, and we'll have to await final legislation on this, but is the issue that I just mentioned with respect to the amendments to Senate Bill 1321, or that are embodied in Senate Bill 1321, rather, amendments to Act 47. And we may need to do some modifications potentially to address that language.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Cluck, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to His Excellency, Major General. Welcome to the City of Harrisburg. Good morning, everybody. That was because he referred to himself as His Excellency. I think I have 3 points. First, procedurally, Mayor Thompson, I think I found the chart on the city's website. It's under Office of the Receiver, and then there's a link. The last update as of this morning is April 11.
Actually, there's another update. We gave directors the deadline, so we'll be having that updated probably in about a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
the directors were having theirs turned in by Friday, this past Friday, so I have the update, but we're not going to post it yet because we have one director that is on a priority project that we gave him an extension on.
okay, thank you. With respect to whatever the chart is it possible for the public to see that so when it's time for us to comment, I know what I'm commenting on?
Okay.
That would be helpful.
I do have copies here, Bill, afterwards we can give
Okay,
you.
thank you. The cash flow. You said there's a projected deficit of
Not yet, it will be after.
$6.8 million, and that does include the September debt service payment of $4 million in the general obligation bonds. Does it include the missed payment, or is that considered missed and we'll just wait and see what the court does?
Right, that's
Okay.
correct.
So if the decision is made not to make the September payment, the deficit is only $2.8 million.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
With respect to the revenue-generating initiatives that you're waiting for council action, I guess this is more of a comment. If it was my decision, I would wait on increasing the EIT for city residents until we have a better understanding of where negotiations are with the creditors. I understand asset monetization is happening. I understand the sale of assets is happening. But there's a forensic investigation that says there are entities responsible. And before taxes are increased, we need to exhaust looking at them participating in the process. And hopefully the monetization of the assets and the lease or sale will actually generate sufficient revenue beyond paying off the debt, but also address the structural deficit. So I think raising the EIT is a little premature right now. I think this is last. I just downloaded Senate Bill 1321, which was amended yesterday. This appears to be the fix for the Supreme Court's decision. Mm-hmm. But there's also an amendment on bankruptcy. It appears that Section 261 is being amended that instead of authorizing the municipality to apply, authorizing the filing of Chapter 9, this amendment, if enacted into law, would require the municipality to apply to the DCED for permission to file, which is, I think, slightly different from an authorization. It then lists certain criteria that must be met. What I found interesting, it says this authorization must be approved by a majority vote of the municipality's governing body. And that would appear to be a change in law, contrary to either the bankruptcy court or one of the federal decisions that said only the mayor was city council. I just want to make sure you folks are aware of that. And then lastly, I just reiterate, I just hope nobody's lobbying the legislature to extend the prohibition on the city's ability to file Chapter 9 come July 1st if negotiations fall apart. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bill. Other comments from the public? All right. Hearing none, I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance, and we look forward to our next meeting. We'll be back on schedule again in June with our next meeting. I would now adjourn this meeting.